As we know, sadly, homelessness is one of the great social problems of our time. And many people who now live on the streets were at some stage forced to come to the conclusion that it was better for them to have nowhere definite to go than to stay at home. Lots of factors behind this, of course. Where young people are concerned, the breakdown of the family unit, the separation of parents who may have gone on to find another partner. These things, amongst many others, they lead to great heartache and stress for many young people today. I heard of a father who wanted to get back in touch with his estranged son. And he took out a 4-page ad in a national newspaper which read, "Come home, Michael, all is forgiven. If you want to see your father again, I'll be waiting on Birmingham New Street train station at such and such a time on such and such a day." And apparently around 200 young men called Michael turned up at that time on that day. So I've asked Kat if she would read a story about homelessness. It's actually the story of 2 sons, neither of whom is at home with their father. So I'm re-entitling this, The Story of the Homeless Boys.
There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'"
Thank you, Kat. Appreciate it. So there's something about probably like the education system which sets people up to go from one thing to the next, O-levels, GCSEs, A-levels, college, university, first job, and so on. I don't know if that's why, but I think it can set up a feeling that we're going for a target, then we're going for another target, then we're going for another target. I remember meeting a lawyer in this church who was 30, and she'd spent her whole focus on becoming a barrister. And the reason she did the life course is because she'd become a barrister. And the question was, well, what now? And I think sometimes it can feel like when you reach the top, there's nothing there. And a lot of people who have really succeeded by anybody's definition often feel that way when the goal is within reach or has actually been achieved, that the quest for there being something more remains. And I have always thought about something that a church theologian called Augustine said from the 4th century. I think it is still true. You have made us for yourself, Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you. You've made us for yourself, Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in you. And there are multitudes of the extremely successful who parade around the edges of their lives all kinds of things, relationships, cars, houses, certificates, all kinds of things that constitute the value of them. And they parade around the edges of a heart that still feels empty. The idea is that we're only truly at rest in our own skin when we're at rest with God. So the Christian claim is that God wants to have a consistent, healthy, intimate parent-child relationship with us. And Jesus uniquely describes God as his Abba, or Daddy. And he speaks a lot about his relationship with God as his Father. He says, I only do what I see my Father doing. I and my Father are one. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Whatever the Father does, the Son does, for the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does. Jesus claims to enjoy an unprecedented relationship of love and trust with God his Father. And he hears his Father say when he's baptized, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased." So at the heart of the Christian faith, there is the supreme example of a reciprocal relationship of love between a father and a son. And the most incredible thing is that we believe that it's possible for people like us to enter into that same kind of relationship of intimacy, confidence, and trust with God as our Father. The story of these homeless boys tells us that it's equally possible to be miles away from God the Father. Now, some people haven't thought about God very much, and you're here because you're too polite to say no. After all, what can you do if somebody says, "Can you come to my baptism?" What are you going to say? Washing the cat. Got some towing aerobics I need to do tonight. It's quite difficult, isn't it? So here you are, because social politeness, you should learn an important lesson from that going forward. And so it may come as news to you that there is a God who wants to have this kind of intimate relationship with you. Christianity is not a religion. Religion is the height of our rejection of God. Christianity is a relationship like any other relationship you know, any good relationship you know, characterized by love and trust and intimacy and being able to say anything at any time and being able to be who you are with this person in the way you can't necessarily be with anyone else. And a lot of people don't realize that, especially in this country, which seems to have deflected people's attention away with the help of the church towards some kind of religious thing that is deeply alienating. So they don't know this about God. And I've found this for years now when people come on the life course. There'll be 50, 70 people that will come on the course. The worst thing about coming on the course on Wednesday is coming for the first week. People absolutely hate coming for the first week because it's social death. They don't know what's going to happen. And basically, they'll have to talk to people they don't know, blah, blah. They go on a journey. They make some great friends. They have a great time. But initially, it's quite difficult to turn up, even if they're really interested. Some people walk round and round the church building trying to get the courage to come. Some people are so pissed by the time they do come, they don't remember what they heard. I'm not joking. This happens again and again, so it's not just you. So not everybody is thinking that they could be a part of God's kingdom. And quite frankly, some people are too busy building their own thingdom, and others are having any number of flingdoms, but they're not necessarily engaged in the concept of God's kingdom. And there are people who make a conscious decision to leave behind any idea of God as Father, to relegate faith in God to the realm of childhood, and to attempt to assume full control for the direction of their lives. You know, we are taught in every conceivable way by virtually any film we watch, any TV we engage in whatsoever, we are taught that the most important thing is for us to be the captain of our own ship, to take personal responsibility for the direction of our lives and to maximize them. And I think the inference is that if I was to connect with God, he'd probably cramp my style. Like the first son in the story, who hits his father with a demand for a share of the family inheritance now, thereby treating his father as though he's already dead. He takes the money and runs. He blows it all on pleasure and the fulfillment of any and every desire. And he's not the last child to have done that, is he? Some of us will be true burners of the candle at both ends, living for the weekend, enjoying anything and everything on offer on the London scene. Or if we're too young to do that yet, we certainly fully intend to. So, if you're one of those, do you feel empty, disillusioned, restless? Not usually. Not to start with. Not while the party is on. But experience says that one day, everyone who lives like this almost certainly will. That is surely the message proclaimed by anyone who's lived by the pleasure principle for long enough. Of course, there are always exceptions, but countless celebs and cultural icons tell us that at some point on the ride, they become desperate to identify some kind of meaning to their lives beyond the pursuit of success and excess. And the first son discovers what so many other people have discovered, that when the money is gone, in a time of crisis, so are his so-called friends, leaving him on the streets with no food. And so he ends up doing the most menial job a Jewish boy could possibly do, which is to feed pigs, ceremonially unclean animals. And in the end, he becomes so desperate, he contemplates eating their swill. So Jesus is saying, this person has fallen as low as you possibly could. He's even with the pigs. He hits rock bottom. And some of us, like this boy, only face the reality of what our lives have become because of some kind of disaster or crisis. We can be so wrapped up in what's going on that it's very hard to see what's going on. Wondering about God again because the ride has come to a crunching halt doesn't tell us anything about the validity of faith. It tells us that some of us find it hard to think straight until we've fallen off the bike. Now, in the absence of a crisis, a growing sense of ennui or boredom seems to catch up with most people who attempt to turn life into some kind of ephemeral playground. And living for the weekend can only really be carried off by the young with their energy and their beauty. And if you're still trying to live it when you're older, this becomes an increasingly difficult look until one day you look like me. Now, either through crisis or process at some point, these sorts of homeless people may eventually consider the possibility of God, either for the first time or for the first time in a very long time. Not for any noble reason, but because sometimes there isn't really anywhere else to go. The son knows that even if he was a servant in his father's house, he'd have a better life than he does now. So, does this tell us that faith is self-interested? Does it tell us that faith is an emotional crutch? Of course it does. Faith in God is not an emotional crutch. It is the emotional crutch if there is a God to believe in. If God really is our true Father, if he loves us with a passion that is beyond our comprehension, then coming home to him brings peace to the mind and comfort to the heart. The real question is not, is faith an emotional crutch? The question is faith credible at all? Imagine you are the parent of a child who left home one day after a blazing row, and you expected her to come home later in that day. You're used to the kid dropping off, you've dropped off yourself. But then time passes, and after 2 days, you know, unmistakably, you have no idea where they are. This is every parent's worst nightmare. And I'm absolutely confident that was you, and that was your kid that had gone. I'm confident that your greatest desire would be for her to come home. It would not matter to you what prompted her to leave. It would not matter to you what she's got up to in the meantime. You just want her back. And I believe that that is how God the Father longs for each of his children to return to him. No matter what prompted us to leave, no matter what we've done, no matter where we've been, he just wants us to come home. The outstanding feature of this story of the prodigal son, as it's usually called, is from my perspective the fact that as the son sets out to come home, he's rehearsed a crappy little speech of apology, he's ready to give it, he's been going over it in his mind, he needs to find something that will save his skin. As he gets within sight of his father's house, his father comes rushing down the road towards him. And what that means is that the Father has always been waiting and hoping and longing for a return. Because otherwise he wouldn't have seen him coming. He sees him coming. Now in those days, old men did not run. And that's not because of their bad knee like me. It's because dignity says you don't run. This father picks up his robes and he athletically shoots down the road to take the homeless stinker in his arms before the words of apology are even coming out, before he's had a bath. He's cramming onto his ring, the ring of being a son. He's clothing him with the robes that say, "You are my child," before he's even getting out his apology. He doesn't care. He just wants to, let's have a party. He's back. That's all he can say. Because that's all he's ever wanted. He's wanted his son to return. And that is all he's ever wanted for you, his sons and daughters, you, his children, made in his image and his likeness. He just wants you back. What about the second homeless boy? I feel like the second homeless boy is much more equivalent to the English than the first one. I mean, it's quite wild. Let's say it's quite European. A little bit French, maybe American. But we have some kind of internal sense of constraint. You know, if we were at a restaurant, we will probably ask the waitress, "Is the apple pie nice?" And we really want the ice cream, but for some reason we won't actually choose the ice cream because something will stop us choosing the ice cream that we really want because we'll have the apple pie. Whereas the Americans go, "I'll take the pie. Just give me the ice cream. Just give it to me now. Give me 2 scoops. No, 3. It's very different. So he kind of lives at home with his father without ever appearing to be at home with him, the second son. And his aggrieved protests when the son returns. "All these years I've worked, I have slaved for you. You've never once thrown a party for me. This son of yours, who's been with prostitutes, and you roll out the red carpet. Where's the justice in that? Now, this story is really directed at the religious elite of Jesus' day who could not believe that a holy man could possibly associate with sinners, tax collectors, prostitutes, the common people, and the like. So some people, particularly the English, nod in the direction of God, but quite honestly, we're much more interested in working for him or fulfilling our own moral standards, of which we are sure that God would approve. By swapping the offer of relationship with God for an exercise in moral or religious performance that we define, we fail to enjoy him, and we inevitably recreate him in our own image. The average Englishman has been aptly described as a self-made man who worships his creator. If we won't accept God on his terms, we will reduce him to ours. And in our culture at the moment, it's really in to be spiritual, isn't it? It's, oh, I've got a spirituality, have you? Yes. It's a bit like gas. Me and God are a bit like gas. You know, gas is in the air and God is in the air. Or he's part of the grass. He's like a cow, in a way. And I read this great TikTok. It was great. I read it. No, that's enough. When you ad-lib, anything could come out. That's the reality. God becomes the kind of guy we think he ought to be. But this God of our own creation tends to be distant, private, unemotional, crucially unthreatening to anything that we want to do. He's often austere, frightening, unapproachable in his otherness. And I've observed over the years that those who most shrilly denounce wrong behavior in other people are often secretly wishing that they had the courage to cast off all restraint themselves, but that would not be English, because we know we should never do it on the streets and frighten the horses. Between gritted teeth, we tend to sell ourselves. There is a moral standard to be performed and certain levels to be maintained. But you know what? Such people are just as wild at heart and just as far from home. Homeless children of this kind often find it hard to accept that they are just as needy as those who've really effed it up and run away from home. But homelessness is homelessness is homelessness. You always know whether you're at home or not. You might want to ask yourself that now. Am I sure I'm at home? Am I actually at home with God? Yes or no? You know. There's all the difference in the world between knowing a book and knowing the author of a book. Knowing about God, it's not the same as knowing God. Are you at home with God? My children are adults now, but thinking back, I'd found it pretty devastating if my son, as a young boy, insisted referring to me as sir, kept himself to himself and never wanted to be touched or told how much I love him. Sometimes we isolate ourselves from the love of God because we can't believe that he either could love us or because we don't trust him to do a better job of running our lives than we can do. And so we don't want to hear it. And this lack of trust often goes back to our own relationship with our Father. We can't imagine a good father, tragically. I know that some people have terrible mothers, but quite a lot of people have damages in their relationships with their father, and they think that God is like that. There's a song we sing, which we didn't sing today, called God is a good, good father. He's not. He's far, far, far better than anything that analogy of God as Father could ever suggest to your mind. God will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He will never judge you. He will never condemn you. He will always look upon you with compassion. He sees you as you are. He loves you as you are. He loves you too much sometimes to leave you as you are, thank God, but he still receives you in love, and he will never cease to do so. And this is the tragedy of the church having decided that there's one category of people, not anybody else, just one category of people that are beyond the love of God. That somehow, because you are as you are, This has somehow set you into a special category. That cannot be right. It's not consistent with the New Testament, where Jesus clearly went to every kind of unacceptable group, be they lepers, prostitutes, tax collectors. Tax collectors were traitors to the country. Prostitutes were prostitutes. Lepers you couldn't touch, otherwise you were unclean. Jesus found the people that were unclean, and he grasped them to himself. And so it's not for the church to do any different. And I'm very sorry that some of you have experienced that. I am very sorry. That's why we changed our position on this some time ago, because it seems to me inconsistent with Jesus. And also, I don't want Jesus choosing between me and my particular unworthinesses and somebody that I have deemed to be unworthy. I don't want to put Jesus in that position, because I'm not sure who would choose. I went to a fairly knobby do near here a few years ago with the Mayor of London, some city councillors and various other dignitaries. And on more than one occasion, I was asked whether my church was happy clappy. Is your church happy clappy? Of course it's happy clappy. Our exuberance, our joy, our celebration, our partying reflect a happy clappy God, like the one Jesus speaks of, who rejoices over people with singing, who always believes in us, who is always hopeful about us, whose love for us always perseveres. As Kirstine mentioned, it seems to me that we are interested in the big questions of life. Questions like, does life have a meaning beyond the meanings that we attribute to it? Is there a God? Do we exist beyond death? Questions like that. But we don't necessarily have a context in which to explore these questions properly, and sometimes if we try with our friendship groups, people will be contemptuous or dismissive. And so it can be difficult to find a place to have these conversations. Unless, of course, you're totally pissed at the end of an evening, at which point you probably considered all the main questions and answered them, but you just can't remember any of the answers the next morning. So to help with this, we run this course called the Life Course. And it's really an opportunity to explore any questions that are on the minds of the people who come. The next one begins on Wednesday, spookily. And I want to tell you exactly what happens. So after you have, sort of manned and womaned up and finally made it through the door, you're greeted by some very nice people on the door who understand how difficult it is to turn up, and you give them your name, and they're nice to you, and they take you through the building, and they introduce you to somebody. You get a little name label. Everybody wears a name label, so nobody has to remember people's names, because let's face it, that is impossible. So basically, you get a name label, then you go on, and you meet your group. You get deposited into your little crop circle, and after a time, you get some food. It's very nice. And then that goes on. You meet other people who get put in your crop circle with you. And then you come and listen to a presentation, which my colleague Matt is going to be doing. And we start right at the beginning, not with Christian ideas at all, but with where we think most people in the culture are right now. So we look at the quest to maximize our greatness. What is a good life? What's a good life? A life of love, of meaning, of significance. We consider the universal human quest. And then in the second week, we consider science. Is it going to be able to answer all the questions? We're told that it will. Will it be able to answer all the questions? What are the respective strengths and weaknesses of atheism and agnosticism? What about religion light, a little bit of crystal? What about religion? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? We say it's a bad thing because, as I've said, spoiler alert, we think that religion is the height of our rejection of God. Christianity is not, repeat not, a religion. It is a relationship. You always know when you met a religious person because they're superior to you, or they look down on you, they austere, something about them that's other. Relationship, warmth, kindness, connection, you always know the difference. If I had money for every person that's cried when they walked into the doors, even in the school rather than the church, I'd be very wealthy. People say they feel they've come home. Do you know why? It's the presence of God. It's not me, it's not the church, it's not the baptism thing. Oh my word, it's called Enjoy Life. I'm literally reading it. Who would enjoy life in that? And maybe a 2-year-old. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So, a presentation, and then, when I've been doing this course, I fully expect people to say that the highlight of the course is always my talks. And it's not. It's the small group. It's the small group. So after the presentations, people go into a small group with their crop circle people. They go off and they have a chat about anything and everything. There are no rules. You can talk about anything you want. You can ask any question. Over time, I do want to say we do give people the Jesus problem, as we call it, the problem of Jesus' life, the problem of the claim he was raised from the dead, etc. So you do get Christian ideas thrown in, and you will hear what we believe. But it's an opportunity to explore with like-minded people. You choose the kind of group you want to go in. So if you are not a church hamster, you don't go with church people. You go with people who have no label, and you have an open chat with everybody else who's feeling a bit awkward being there, who's told their friends they're doing French lessons or whatever. I'm playing football. Yeah. In the church. No, I'm not in the church. Anyway, so basically there's groups for people who don't have a label. There's groups for people who are definitely Christians, who are doing this to kind of integrate into St. Mary's, and obviously the chat is different in the different groups. And if you would feel safer, there is a group for LGBT people. And you are very welcome to join that one. We understand the triggering effect of being in a church context for people who are new to it from that background. So, anybody is welcome to come. You can come once and then decide you are not returning. Nobody will hunt you down. You will not end up in some kind of squat in Acton. Better than what did I used to say? Hampstead, before I knew what Hampstead was like. So, where there are no squats. So, basically, we're not interested in your money, and we're not trying to induct you into our cult. If you think this might be of interest to you, you're sitting on an invitation. There are many, many more invitations over there by the door, and you can just go and see somebody, have a chat, sign your life away. And I think it'll be very vibrant on Wednesday with people coming from all kinds of backgrounds. You're really welcome to have heard enough. Good, and now we enter into a time of a final song.